All right. What we're looking at here is an in-game setup for Crypt Crawler Quest, which is the expansion to Crypt Crawler. I've done a video on Crypt Crawler already. You can see the link to it. I will be reviewing a little bit and explaining a little bit about how the main game works, but we're going to be focusing also on the expansion here. And I decided on the format for this video, and it is really going to be a review of this expansion and by extension of the game itself, to focus on this in-game moment as a way of talking about the game itself as a whole, because I think it is indicative of some of the strengths of the game and why I think it's such a great game in this small package. And the upshot of my comments about it is that it is a great game and it really executes its mission quite well. It's effective and it is a tight design, and it allows for you to have excitement and variability of play based on the characters that you choose and the classes that you choose. And even though the rules are fairly light and the gameplay loop is fairly simple in a good way, there are a lot of moments of decision space. And I think that for me, that is where, when I'm playing a kind of lightweight game, as I would characterize this, lightweight doesn't necessarily need to mean a lack of decision space. And the the ratio of decision space to rules and to gameplay loop, if it is high, I think that makes the game even more successful. And if the decisions play into the theme of what the game is trying to do, and in this case, it is a dungeon crawler, again, that is effective design as far as I'm concerned. So in this game, you are playing a character. In this case, I'm playing, you can't quite see it, I think. I'm playing a satyr blood mage who is traveling through a dungeon up to 5 levels to try to get to a boss, to defeat the boss. Very simple. You're collecting loot along the way. You're gaining experience along the way. You are consuming food along the way. You are getting gold along the way, and you can, if you're lucky, spend that gold in shops that turn up in the game. You will be flipping these cards and matching the symbol of where you are in the dungeon to the card and making a decision if you want to have that encounter or take your chances and flip the next card, and then you have the mandatory encounter on the next card. You follow the whatever it says, either encountering an enemy, or you may just be lucky. My first level here, I got super lucky and I encountered just things like random gold lying around or random treasures lying around. You can get lucky, you can get unlucky, but whatever it is, you go through. And I notice here, I cleared that room. You're going through and you are needing to pick up the key to get out of the dungeon. I just picked up the key, and then you are traveling through and leaving the dungeon by the locked entrance. So here I need to continue through. I could optionally go here if I want and leave the second level. The monsters will increase in difficulty as you go through the levels, as they should. So the way that happens is you get a modifier card based on the level that you are on. I'm playing with I guess they're either normal or easy rules, where the number of modifier cards you get is -1 of the level of dungeon that you are in. So here you see 1 modifier card applied to the monster in the second level of the dungeon, but you can play it where you're getting 2 modifier cards, and that makes it harder. You are able to, as I said, pick up items, equip things. I have a helmet here, I'm carrying something in my main hand, etc. There's potions and other things. What the Crypt Crawler Quest adds to this game is, first of all, more loot. So you're able to roll a d20 to pick up loot as opposed to a d6. So it adds a ton of loot. And that was one of my gripes with the first game, because the loot was limited in such a way that if you gained loot, often you would roll to pick it up and only to find that on the opposite side of the loot you already had, you had to make a choice. So it was like you didn't actually get anything. And that was kind of a bummer because really why we're here is for the loot. So this adds a ton of loot, and it also adds something called talismans and quests. And you can see here that I have just picked one up before this filming began. And when you enter a room with this icon, you are able to pick up a random quest if you choose. You don't have to. In this particular quest, to resolve it, I need to go to 2 blood altars. And as a reminder, or to tell you if you don't know this game, blood altars will pop up during the course of your travels through the dungeon. Again, if you're lucky, you'll get a blood altar, and you can sacrifice an HP at the blood altar to increase this die by 1. And at the end of your travels, when you reach the boss, the number of sacrifices you have previously made is going to help you by reducing the boss's statistics. That's basically the way to understand it. In this particular case, I need to resolve this by finding 2 blood altars, which again, I may or may not do. I got lucky in that I found one in the first level. I have played this game in the past where I haven't found one till like the 4th level, and that makes the boss harder. So the luck element is definitely there. And then once you resolve it, there's more luck involved because you're going to roll your d6, and you're either going to get some loot, or you're going to get the opportunity to choose a talisman. And a talisman is going to be something. Here's an example of one. There are I think there's 5 quests and 5 talismans in the game. It's going to give you some permanent benefit that you can have for the rest of the game. Now, again, this may happen very much at the end, or it may be that I have this quest and I'm never actually able to resolve it because it is just, this one in particular is just luck based. If I happen to encounter these blood altars and feel that I can sacrifice the HP to use them. So one of the things that makes this game special, as I mentioned, is the decision space. And we're going to look here. This was the orc that I made a decision to encounter this orc. And the reason that I decided I wanted to encounter him, and I did just defeat him, is that I wanted the opportunity to get these 2 soul shards because it brought me up to a total of 5. And once you have 5 soul shards, if you encounter, I can't remember what it's called, but I'll put it up in link, that special room, you can turn one of those into a crystal. And the crystals are the things that you need to encounter the boss. So you'll get a number of crystals and you'll match up the colors of the crystals, and it will determine what boss you are facing. And there are, I think, 10 bosses in the game with the expansion. Additionally, I wanted the gold, and I wanted to get this an option to roll on this item. So let's take a look at some of the new things that come with the game. Specifically, we're going to look at some of the new races and classes. I'm playing this satyr. This is a new character, and he's got a lot of speed, so he often goes first, and he starts with a couple of food, sort of, well, high-ish, but not super high, fear, factor, and stamina. And his starting item is a flute. So the flute is, it says you may discard this card to skip an enemy's next attack. So that's what he comes with. And I decided to play him as a blood mage. So you've got, for 5 experience, this masochist. Once per battle, when an enemy inflicts damage to you and reduces your HP, gain 1 strength until the end of the conflict. So that's only once per battle. Then with 12 experience, I'm not quite there yet. I can spend an HP to reduce my poison or fear by 1. So that's pretty good. And then Siphon, at 19 experience, once per battle, you may spend 2 HP to inflict 5 damage to an enemy, ignoring their toughness. Well, that's pretty awesome. And he also came with a staff and shawl. And those are, you could see them over here. The staff, I'm actually not really using the staff because I picked up, right early on, I picked up the scepter early on, which is better. But the staff does some physical damage, 1, 2, and 2. And then the shawl is giving me a toughness here of 1. It's also adding to my AC, and it has a 3 durability. One of the new things also in this game is there are anvil rooms, and an anvil room is going to allow you to fix something that you have. And we'll just take a look at the actual rule for that so I get it right. Okay, I will say the printing on this, the rules are like, for me at any rate, a teeny bit hard to read. It says anvils, let's see if once per encounter. Sorry about this. Once per encounter on an anvil icon, which is actually missing in my rules. On a resolution, you can resolve that. It allows you to spend gold to repair 1 loot item that has a durability value. So it's 1 gold to increase that item's durability by 1 up to its printed maximum, and you can only repair 1 loot item per room. And then the other thing here is, again, the quest room here that also, that icon, by the way, is missing. Maybe will be fixed by the time you see this video. That's the resolution card with the question mark on it that I already showed you. And so these are just the kind of new rules. Basically, you're integrating the new cards into the old. As you know, if you have the base game, the main rules are not contained in the tin. You need to print them out or just have them digitally to review. So there's not an equivalent of this. If you don't have the game, you will not be getting rules like this in the main game. You need to download them separately. So that is the satyr that I am playing. We also get Dark Elf here, who has a lot of health and pretty good speed, and an AC of 3, and a dwarf who has a lot of AC here. He's got lower fear and stamina value. He comes with some gold, of course, kind of lower health, but he does have this built-in toughness value here of 2. He gets this 1 additional physical strength, and then this dark elf gets the 2 additional physical strength. And we'll take a look at the starting items. So this charm says you may discard this card to reduce the amount of fear inflicted on you to 0. And then we've got, let's see, this candle that came with somebody, I can't remember. You may discard this card to lower your movement tracker by 3 steps. That's pretty good because you can see, I don't have this, but my lantern's about to go out, and I haven't found a place to get any oil, or I haven't been able to get any oil or fix that. So I'm going to be in darkness pretty soon. And as a reminder, when you are in darkness, you have mandatory different encounters that are kind of more thematic to darkness than light encounters, and have to deal with that as you go through. So again, this is some of the new content in this expansion, and I think really chiefly the addition of the loot is key, I think. And we also have got, here, I'll just show you these new classes as well. We have Necro. So this is like a necromancer kind of thing. And for example, for your 5 experience, when you inflict damage to an enemy and reduce their HP, decrease their toughness by 1 for the rest of the battle. That's pretty good. You can harvest a soul here. When you defeat an enemy, you may increase your fear to heal 4 HP. That's cool. Gaze of Terror, spending stamina to inflict damage on an enemy equal to your fear. That's pretty good. 18 experience. And then this Thief, I almost went with the Thief. When you defeat an enemy, gain a gold. So that's super cool, especially, again, if you end up encountering a lot of the store areas, you could be golden, as it were, but you can't control any of that. Kismet, once per a dungeon, when you roll for loot, you may increase or decrease your die roll by 1. That is cool. I didn't notice that. I like that. Maybe next time. You may take an item for free from any shelf in the shop, pilfer 18. That's really cool. So again, thematic, like that's obviously what a thief would do. So these are new to the expansion. I think the main point in the expansion is, again, the more loot. You get more loot, which is important. If you have this game, I would definitely, if you have the game and like it, definitely get the expansion. I mean, that's just the message. If you're just buying this game, I'd probably go for the expansion too. Maybe watch some more videos to see if you're going to like the game. But it does add a lot to the game, and it makes you feel like your character is developing. You know, the more loot you have, the more it feels like the character is developing into something, and you become attached to it. I think the concept of the ability to repair loot is another decision space that you have in the game that's important, and it just integrates very nicely. So you're feeling more like you're not simply just walking through the dungeon and encountering an enemy. It always did have a little bit more than that, because you do have the built-in choice of deciding if you're going to counter another card, weighing the enemy that you're seeing in one card with the possibility that maybe you're going to get into a better room. So for example, with my 5 soul shards now, I really want to be able to get to a room to turn those into a crystal. So I may be a little bit more aggressive in cycling through the cards, even if I am facing an enemy I know I can deal with, and taking my chance there because I've got to get those crystals going. So that is one type of decision space that exists in the game. Secondly, in terms of wandering, I tend not to wander into extra rooms, but the oil factor is a big one because I'm going to be running out of oil. The more rooms I go into, on the one hand, the more oil runs out, but on the other hand, the more opportunity I have to cycle through and encounter a place where I can get more oil. So all of those things allow you to just play with the decisions that you are given by this dungeon crawler. What you want in a dungeon crawler, as mentioned, is you want loot, and you want sort of enemies to encounter that are different and exciting. Here, I would say that the enemies themselves are they're differentiated by their stats. They're differentiated by what you can get from them, whether it's a certain type of loot or gold or experience. Well, you're going to get experience everywhere, or a soul shard. Some of them have even 2 soul shards. So there is that difference. They don't have the enemies themselves, as opposed to the bosses, don't have any special abilities built in. So there's really not that much ultimately difference, say, between a zombie. Now it's going to attack you with fear, again, thematically, versus a ghost. It's all going to be fear-based attacks. One of the new enemies that I encountered is this hag. We'll look at the hag here somewhere. Nope. Well, this is a goblin. A great art here, should mention that. So, you've got the physical attack only from the goblin versus some fear attack with the zombie. The hag, I believe, had some fire damage that she did. And so there is that difference. So you can be sort of here's the hag. Here's her fire damage. You're going to get a different type of loot with her. Soul shard, but no gold. There aren't special abilities on the enemies, and here, in a sense, it feels like a compliment in a way to the game to almost ask for more, because I think the game could handle it. You're given so much here already. Of course, when you're given so much, you even want more. So if I'm wanting anything different from the game that could possibly be contained within the same amount of physical components, it might be a redesign of these cards, shrinking everything up a little bit to put some type of special attack or something onto an enemy, and maybe an option of like bribing the enemy with gold in order to avoid that additional special attack, something like that, I think could add even more another decision point for you to use your resources. Or maybe it wouldn't just be bribing with gold. Maybe you could bribe the dwarf with gold, but you'd have to bribe, the hag with something else that you had, like maybe, I don't know, if she wants food or something. So, maybe something like that could add a little bit to the enemies, because you are, despite the fact that there are many things to do, you are spending a fair amount of time, obviously, fighting the enemies. So having a teeny bit more there, I think, could add some richness to the game. But overall, this is a fantastic execution of a dungeon crawl in a mint tin, and the decision space, as mentioned, is pretty good, and the artworks, the what you're using your resources for makes sense. The different ways you can lose. I've lost this game by basically being scared. You can lose by just having your fear level rise so much that you can't go on. I've also lost it by just losing my health. So there's different ways to lose the game, and if you're wise with your resources, there are ways to mitigate the loss of things like health, or to increase damage you do by using stamina. You have your 3 lucky coins that you can use. I always forget about those when you're really desperate, if you need a re-roll, for example. And all of it just comes together really nicely in a great package. I think the expansion adds value and options and flavor and theme and loot, which support the theme. So it's well worth it. And overall, the Crypt Crawler game is, for sure, I've played a bunch of these mint tin, like dungeon crawler type things, including some that this, is acknowledged to be inspired by, and also the bigger games like Iron Helm. And I feel like this does everything just a little bit better. There's more decisions to make. The characters are really differentiated. You can pair any race and class and try to get a character that will work for you based on your prior experience of playing. The bosses are differentiated, and you feel like you're progressing through something. You feel a sense of accomplishment and relief when you get to the end of a level. But then you realize when you go into the next level, everything is ratcheted up because you'll have like an additional modifier card. And all that is really successful. That's what you want in a dungeon crawl. And that's what this accomplishes in a really small package.